Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
It's Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, episode 294. That means that we're just a couple of episodes, about a week and a half away from episode 300. And I'm planning something kind of special for episode 300. And, you know, it's going to be a little later than it would have been because I'm missing Friday shows. I have been missing Fridays for the last couple of weeks. I will be missing them again, or at least I'll be missing a Friday show this week. I should have a Friday show on the 18th and the 25th of March, and I think every other Friday in April. So basically from now until Memorial Day, it's hit or miss whether or not there will be a Friday show. And why is it hit or miss about the Friday shows between now and Memorial Day? Well, that's because I'm doing this thing called Running for President, which has me traveling all over the country, as I have been doing the last couple of weeks and will be doing for the next several. So this week I will be in Denver and Colorado Springs. I'm flying into Denver, and then Colorado Springs is about an hour and a half away, I guess. And that is where the Colorado Libertarian Party State Convention will be happening. It takes place in Colorado Springs. There's a speakeasy night that they're having on Friday. There's a presidential debate in Springfield, Illinois on Friday that I will be missing because I will be in Colorado Springs. But there's a debate on Saturday in Colorado Springs that I will be participating in. There's also a debate tonight in North Carolina that I will be participating in. How is that possible? Well, it's this wonderful technology called the Internet. The same way that you are listening to this program is how I will be participating in that debate in North Carolina. And actually, none of the candidates will be in North Carolina. All of the candidates will be connecting in from wherever they happen to be across the country. And I will be connecting in actually from the Black Sheep Studios, where if you are familiar with Black Sheep Rising, you will not recognize the studio at all, but you do know where I am talking about, or at least you should be familiar with the Black Sheep Studios of Conan Soliday. So I'm actually going to cover up the wall art that he has with my own sheet. That way it looks more professional when I'm on the debate tonight with Gary Johnson, Austin Peterson, Steve Kerbell, and Jack Robinson. That debate hosted by the Libertarian Party of North Carolina. It will be broadcast live, I believe, on community access television there in Raleigh, or it might be taped and then broadcast later in the week. But it will wind up being available for everyone to watch at a later date if you are not able to watch it live tonight. I will post the link for that event in the show notes, and you can watch that live. Now, something that I don't think that I mentioned last week on the show, and yes, I did say on the show that I did last week, is the Minnesota Libertarian Caucus. And this is something that I did not even realize was happening until after it happened. And if you give me 1 second, I can pull up the story here about this Libertarian Caucus. So, as you know, it's the primary and caucus seasons. If you watch the mainstream media, then you're hearing all about the various people that are winning the various caucuses. Donald Trump has been winning several. I think I thought of Mitt Romney because Mitt Romney had that press conference last week saying you have to wind up doing something to make sure that Donald Trump is not your nominee. And I'm looking at the numbers here, and Donald Trump has, it looks like, about an 89 delegate lead so far over Ted Cruz. And, of course, the way the Republicans and Democrats do their caucuses and primaries is that delegates are allotted based on the results. The way the Libertarians do theirs, and there are very few caucuses and primaries for the Libertarians, which is why I'm surprised that the Libertarians in Minnesota actually had a caucus. But again, I did not find out about this until late last week. But it happened on Tuesday. Now, the reason there's a debate for the North Carolina Libertarians, the reason they're hosting this debate, the reason that they're doing the one that's going to be broadcast on community access television down there in North Carolina, is because North Carolina is one of the few states that has a Libertarian Party primary. Now, unlike the Republicans and Democrats, the Libertarian primary is basically just a straw poll. It's a beauty contest, if you will. Same thing with the caucus in Minnesota. It was a beauty contest, and very similar to the straw poll that was held in Biloxi a couple of weeks ago, where I finished fourth, 3 votes out of third place. It basically was a beauty contest, meaning it's non-binding. Nobody winds up going to convention and saying, I'm a delegate for because this is how the results turned out. But let me mention the Minnesota caucus real quick, because, again, it's something that I did not know happened until, well, after it happened. And the story here actually comes from the Libertarian Party of Minnesota. They put out a press release saying, in several states, including Minnesota, Super Tuesday featured highly contested races between multiple contenders in both the Republican and Democratic presidential races, undoubtedly spurring higher than usual turnout among the public for these parties. Exactly 226 Minnesotans decided they did not care. Not wanting to be fooled anymore by the two big old parties, they came to the Libertarian caucuses instead, ready to support something better. Conducted in every region of the state, those who came to the Libertarian Party of Minnesota caucuses is highest caucus turnout. All 11 caucus locations reported in the evening of March 1st, and they have the results here, where they actually used a version of ranked choice voting, where Gary Johnson received the most first-place votes, receiving over 75%. John McAfee received 11.8% of the first-place votes. Austin Peterson received 7.5%, and I received just under 2%. And then they show the top 4 second-choice vote-getters being John McAfee at 36.6%, Gary Johnson, 17.4, Austin Peterson, just under 19, Steve Kerbell, just under 12, and I cannot tell, based on the graph that they have, what my second, or, you know, where I fell on that second choice votes, but it appears that I was fairly close to being either in 5th or 6th on that. And then the third choice votes, I appear to be solidly in 4th or 5th. But anyway, I'm definitely one of the top tier candidates, definitely in the top 5, and I will be in that debate tonight. Stay tuned. There's more. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerary supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
PhonePhone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of PhonePhone right now at PhonePhone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve PhonePhone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to PhonePhone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's PhonePhone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, Echo, November, phone.com.
PhonePhone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
So before I jump back into some of the news and change gears a little bit, instead of talking about politics, to talking about something that's fairly interesting about how one CEO from Charles Schwab reveals how taking job applicants to breakfast helps him decide whether or not to hire the person. But before I get into that, I want to make sure that I let you know a way that you can keep your money in the free market. That is, if you use free market money. You do use Bitcoin, right? And you promote alternatives to the fiat-centric world. Well, then you need Spend-A-Bit in your arsenal. Spend-A-Bit is the search engine for things you can buy, you guessed it, with Bitcoin. Spend-A-Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend-A-Bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. So the story here comes from The Blaze, and it reads, a person's character is revealed during times of great pressure and distress. A great way to test out someone's character is to observe how they react when things don't go according to plan. What if there was a way for employers to test out job candidates and compare how each reacts to unpleasant curveballs? Charles Schwab corporate CEO Walter Bettinger has created such a system. Earlier this month, he shared his secret with the New York Times. And this is actually from last month, so still fairly recent, but he recently shared his secret with the New York Times. Before every new hire, Bettinger takes candidates out for a breakfast interview. But what the potential employees don't know is that every time Bettinger shows up early and asks the restaurant to purposefully mess up the order in exchange for a handsome tip. For an employer like Bettinger, character is everything. He told the Times that his wrong order test is meant to gauge how prospective hires deal with adversity. He says, are they upset? Are they frustrated? Or are they understanding? Life is like that, and business is like that. It's just another way to look inside their heart rather than their head. What are the other ways, they ask. Before offering candidates a position at the brokerage and banking company, Bettinger asked them to tell him their greatest successes in life. And this is, I'm just going to pause here real quick, and this is something that is sort of interesting, to where if you ask people, like, what's your greatest success in life, or what are you most proud of accomplishing? There's a lot of people, they'll say, the day they got married, or the day their kid was born, or they'll rattle off, some long list of business accomplishments of, well, I'm the manager of this or the manager of that. But really, none of those are really success. I guess to some extent, finding love is a success. Being happy is a success. Having children, kind of a success, but there are a lot of people that have children completely on accident. So I don't know if you could necessarily consider that a success, but it is something that's interesting that sort of shows you where people's hearts really lie when they answer the question about what their greatest success is. And I think a better question, instead of what is your greatest success, how would you define success? And this goes back to something that I talked about a while back, where I answered the question about what is my definition of greatness. And of course, I only thought about that question because I started listening to a podcast a couple of months ago called The School of Greatness. And the host of that show, every episode, he asked his guest, well, not every episode, because he does do a 5-Minute Friday, and there's not the question and answer on that. And every now and then it's a guest that records that. But on the Monday and Wednesday interviews that he does, he will ask his guest 3 separate questions. And I love these questions, and I'm going to keep repeating these questions because they just sort of stick with me. So the 3 questions that he asked: what are you grateful for? What is your definition of greatness? And if today was your final day and everything you've ever created has been destroyed, but your friends and family and your loved ones, everybody that you care about is surrounding you, and they hand you a piece of paper and say everything you've ever written is destroyed, but we want something to remember you by. Write down 3 things you know to be true about life. Now, what I would do if I were in a position to hire people for some sort of job, and like I guess technically I could hire people to work for my publishing company. I don't really have any work for them to do, and I don't have any money to pay them, but I could certainly just like interview people if I wanted to. It would be a complete waste of time. That's why I don't do it. But if I were in a position like an HR position, I would ask people those 3 questions during an interview. Because, again, it goes back to this sort of thing that the CEO of Charles Schwab is getting to, of it sort of gets you into their heart rather than their head. Because somebody could be the most knowledgeable person about something, but if they're a complete a-hole, then, I don't think I want them working for me. Because you need to have people skills. And even if it's something where you're not dealing directly with people, if it's unpleasant for me to go talk to you to try to explain to you what it is that I need done, I'm not going to go talk to you, and you're never going to get the job done properly, and nobody's going to like you. So let me get back into the article here from The Blaze. So Bettinger, that's the last name of the CEO, says that he asked what their greatest success is in life, and he says, quote, "What I'm looking for is whether their view of the world really revolves around others or whether it revolves around themselves, and I'll ask them about their greatest failures in their life and see whether they own them or whether they are somebody else's fault." In the same interview, Bettinger shared one of his biggest failures. He said it was one of his last college exams, which ruined his pristine 4.0 average. That taught him how important it was to recognize individuals who do the real work. After spending hours studying and memorizing formulas for calculations, young Bettinger showed up to find that the exam was nothing but a blank sheet of paper. The professor said, I've taught you everything I can teach you about business in the last 10 weeks. But the most important question is, what's the name of the lady who cleans the building? Bettinger had no idea. He failed the exam and got a B in the class. He says that was a powerful impact. Her name was Dottie. I did not know Dottie. I'd seen her, but I'd never taken time to ask her name. Bettinger shared that since then, he's tried to know every Dottie he's ever worked with, saying it's a great reminder of what really matters in life. And there's more to this story on the New York Times. I will post the link to the shorter version from The Blaze, as well as the longer version from the New York Times in the show notes. And, of course, there is more, so stay tuned to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, right here at FPPRadio.com. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent, but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous, but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
So before I get back into the news and completely change directions, although not completely, like sort of, veer off in one direction or another, because I did sort of briefly touch on tipping in the last segment. But before I get into this next story about tipping, I want to make sure that I tell you about a new company that I've been doing some business with, Thrive Market. So, as you know, and I've talked about this a good bit, over the last year I've started getting back in shape, started watching what I eat. I've lost nearly 140 pounds, and I'm starting to look a lot better than I did a year ago. I'm feeling a lot better. And as I said, I'm watching what I eat and trying to take care of myself. And, well, I've done some shopping at Thrive Market. Now, what Thrive Market is they're sort of a, not necessarily wholesale to the public, but you do get almost wholesale prices. You can get things at a very deep discount. And that's because you pay a membership fee, and it's minimal. It's $60 a year. But you can get a 30-day free trial. So go to thrive.fppradio.com. Sign up for a free 30-day trial. Check it out. Buy some stuff. All orders over $49 get free shipping, even during that free trial. And you get an extra, I think it's like 15% off on your first order. So go to thrive.fppradio.com. Check out their selection of health foods. They've got stuff that's organic, non-GMO, all the good stuff that you need. So they don't necessarily have fresh fruits and vegetables, but they do have supplements. They've got banana bites. I had some of those. They're absolutely amazing. Plantain chips. They've got various powders that you can add into smoothies. So one of the things that I recently bought was a Greek yogurt powder, which makes adding that into my smoothie a lot easier and cheaper than buying Greek yogurt and then having to refrigerate. So I just keep the jar of the powder sitting on the floor and pick it up when I need it, put some in my smoothie, and it's like having Greek yogurt in the smoothie without having actual Greek yogurt. It's absolutely amazing stuff, and I've just placed a second order and getting a lot more stuff here in the next couple of days. So thrive.fppradio.com, and when you sign up using my affiliate link, I believe they actually wind up giving you a little something extra in addition to that 30-day free trial and that 15% extra discount on your first order. Thrive.fppradio.com. So there's a story that's actually been in my notes here for a few weeks, and it's something that I decided, I'm going to go ahead and get around to doing this, or at least talking about it, because in that last segment when I talked about the CEO of Charles Schwab, one of the things that was mentioned was he would tell the waiter or the waitress or whoever it was, hey, I need you to do me a favor, screw up this order, and I'll give you a pretty good tip. I will give you a quote-unquote handsome tip. Well, there are some people that don't like the idea of tipping, and that's fine. Like you don't have to like tipping. Just let me know, and then I'll never go to a restaurant where tipping is something that is expected. I won't go there with you because I want to make sure that the waiter or the waitress realizes that, I'm not being an a-hole. I'm giving you some extra money because you're not being paid what you probably should be, and you're expecting this extra money from me. Well, there are some people, and I think the term a-hole is fitting. There are some people that instead of leaving money as a tip, they will leave religious pamphlets. And I don't think that that's something that should really be encouraged. If you're going to go, if you want to leave a religious pamphlet, I will say this. If you want to leave a religious pamphlet, don't do so in lieu of a tip. Leave it in addition to a tip. Because, the waiters and the waitresses working in these restaurants, they're expecting tips from their customers because that's how they get paid. Because they're only getting like $2 and something cents per hour. It might be $3 and something per hour from the employer, and then they're expecting the customers to pick up the rest of that in their salary. And point of fact, they wind up getting taxed based on the percentage of whatever their total receipts are, whether they get tipped or not. Well, there's a story here out of North Carolina where it says the general manager of a local restaurant is standing behind an employee who she says was shorted on a tip and left a religious pamphlet from a local church. Penny Craver, a general manager of Dish in Plaza Midwood, said one of her employees, who's also a student, was really upset after receiving a religious pamphlet from her guest and a less than 8% tip. Craver, who felt bad for her employee, did something most people in the service industry only dream of. Craver looked up the church listed on the pamphlet, Harbor Baptist in Charlotte, and wrote an email to the pastor. The email reads, Pastor Simmons, I'm the general manager of Dish restaurant in Plaza Midwood. Imagine one of my servers surprised when she received a small pamphlet. Every one of us will face eternity one day. Instead of a tip when she served what I assume was one of your congregation. Her particular religious beliefs are not discussed at work. However, I do know that this pamphlet cannot pay her mortgage or her electric bill. It concerns me that someone would consider a pamphlet fair monetary exchange. Suppose your congregation felt it was sufficient to tithe their personal writings instead of 10% of their income. Your church would not be paying their bills for very long. I think it would be great if you used this in a sermon. Pride, one of the 7 deadly sins, is considered on almost every list, the original and most serious of the 7 deadly sins, the source of the others. It is identified as believing that one is essentially better than others, failing to acknowledge the accomplishments of others, and excessive admiration of the personal self, especially holding self out of proper position towards God. I think it could be educational for at least one member of your congregation. Thank you very much for your time. Craver says she printed out the email and brought it in, and something went wrong here, and the story completely disappeared from in front of me. And the web browser here has reopened. Craver says she printed out the email and brought it in to show her staff because she wanted them to know she has their back. Craver continued that she felt compelled to write the email because it was the 3rd or 4th time. Not the first, not the second, the 3rd or 4th time that this particular employee had received religious literature in lieu of a tip, and she felt it was unfair. The waitress, according to the story here from WCNC, The waitress works hard when she's able to pick up shifts between her classes. Graver says, and those pamphlets aren't helping her pay her bills. Graver says the waitress was very touched after reading the note, and her employees as a whole were just happy that I stood behind them. The article will be in the show notes. And don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions, AMA@FPPradio.com.